Yes, she was also working.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet her. I talked with her on the phone a number of times, so we both.
I thought I'd been doing something good all this time.
What? Why not?
I stapled all the documents to the committee reports. Do not use staples.
Yes, because they have to scan them or something and they have to pull it out.
I've been doing that
Yes.
for years. Ah, times change, huh?
Table, but no table. Okay.
That should be equal with love.
I think we're going to go, right?
Good thing.
Hear from Gene.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Okay, guess we're ready. Lisa, we're ready to go?
I should say that, good Jane.
Yep, you're all set.
All right, sounds good.
I don't think we're voting on anything.
Oh, okay.
So we don't really need it.
Okay. Good evening. It is 6:34. Welcome to the July edition of the Community Development and Housing Committee meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order right now. As I said, it's 6:34. Welcome aboard. So we actually have two things on the agenda tonight. Bartek is really full of them. So we'll have your update. Okay.
I just have a brief update and then I'd really like to go into the next agenda item. So my one update is, we previously discussed by vacancy study. I did want to just update this committee that I'm finishing that up, final follow up, putting that together. And I gave the original timeline that would be released this summer, and so I still expect that to be the case, and we'll be publishing it soon. We'll communicate to the Common Council further information as they have it. So that's my update. Any questions?
Is soon before the next Community Development and Housing Committee, or?
I am hoping for that, yes.
How has the response rate been from the landlords?
So I don't want to speak about any results yet because I'm still doing. So we're doing follow up. I'll have more shit. We can move on to the next.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow. Okay. That's what I like. Okay. Moving on. That is all the new business for tonight. We have some old business from last month. Namely the memorializing resolution that Bartek put forth. We had some discussion on it and we decided to put it off last month. Is there anything you're adding to it?
I have not changed the original resolution in any way at this point. No.
Okay.
This is the
Yeah, so the
Second,
there's a second one.
yes.
right, so the latest and greatest I submitted right before our July meeting is still the latest and greatest. So one of the obviously we had a lengthy discussion about the model and some of the ins and outs, and one of the action items was a request that we invite Paul Williams from the Center for Public Enterprise to come to present to this committee. Paul, you can. So as a means of background, I reached out to the Center for Public Enterprise when I first learned about this mixed income public development model. I had read some early articles from the Montgomery County example, and I thought, hey, let's explore this further. Obviously, I need help, and so Paul is kind of the person that knows this model the best, and so he has a short presentation for tonight, and then we can review additional questions and continue the discussion. Last time, Paul.
Great. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Paul. I'm the executive director at Center for Public Enterprise. We're a nonprofit think tank, and we do, in addition to doing think tank reports and research, we also work directly with public agencies across the country, like public housing authorities, state housing finance agencies, green banks. We do housing work and energy work, and we help agencies design and implement affordable housing development programs on the housing side and clean energy development programs on the energy side. This presentation that I have is a kind of an overview of this mixed income public development model. We'll talk about where the model came from, what it's building in some of those communities, where across the country housing authorities and state housing finance agencies are taking it up. And then get into kind of some of the questions of how it works and what it's actually doing to help mixed income developments get financed. So this program really was pioneered by a housing authority just outside of Washington, D.C., called the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. There's a public housing authority in the area. It's been highlighted by HUD under previous administration. I'm not so sure of current administration, what they think about it. We haven't heard anything. It's been awarded prizes for innovation in affordable housing finance and, other things across the country. So it's really picked up a lot of steam in the past few years. Go ahead. So I wanted to just start with some of the projects that have actually been developed so we can ground in that. And then we'll get into mechanics in a minute here. So this first project on the left, the Laureate at Shady Grove, this property is built, is stabilized, it's fully occupied, was completed in 2023. And it's 270 units. It's transit oriented. It's right next to a transit station on the DC Metro line. And it has these affordability metrics, 25% at 50% AMI and 5% at 60% AMI. And the kind of key thing here is that it has all of that affordability with no low-income housing tax credits, no tax exempt bonds, no vouchers, no any subsidy of any kind. The way it achieves that is they have a revolving fund, which we'll get into how it exactly works. And the Housing Opportunities Commission is a co-owner in the project. So they're the majority owner. And so essentially what happens is the market rate rents, which accrue with a profit, that gets transferred and helps cover the cost of all the affordable units. So the way that they think about this program, it's not like, they don't think like, we just do this, right? They do all of their Section 8 development and low-income housing tax credit. They spend all the federal money they get. And this is something they do on top of that, because you can do more even after you've spent all of your federal money. The next project on the right, this one's under construction. It says opening fall 2026, but it is ahead of schedule, and I think it's going to open in spring of 2026. This one's even bigger. It's 460 units across 2 buildings. Again, using the same model. And they have another one that is closing in the next couple of weeks. That's another 400 units next to this first one on the left. So they're like really chugging along and building a lot of projects using this tool. You go to the next one. Here is a map of all of the states and cities that we know of that are in the process of designing and implementing programs like this. We are working with most of these places, which is how we know that they're moving along with it. But as you can see, kind of along the East Coast, there's been a ton of interest. We have Kingston on the map there because we know Kingston is interested. We also have Syracuse, who we're working with to help them design, similar program. Philadelphia, DC area, Fairfax County, Virginia, Raleigh, North Carolina, Chattanooga, Charleston, New Orleans, all of these kind of like along the eastern seaboard there. And then a number of jurisdictions at the state level with their state housing finance agency, including Michigan and Colorado and Oregon. And it's only growing. So, go to the next one. So I mentioned the revolving fund, and I mentioned that they're getting these pretty significant levels of affordability without any of those conventional federal subsidies. So I wanted to explain a little bit about how that works. I'm going to actually go up here and do a little bit of pointing. So really, when we're doing housing development, we have two ways that we can finance it in most places. We have the traditional affordable route, which is where you apply to your state housing finance agency for affordable housing subsidies. And this is usually you're going in for low income housing tax credits and tax exempt bonds, and maybe some other sources like community development block grants or Section 8 vouchers or other things like that. And this works really well. And we build it in the United States 90 to 100,000 units of affordable housing a year using this pipeline. The challenge with it is that each state gets a bucket of money, and basically every state spends every single dollar in that bucket every year. And so that's the constraint. And so, in New York's case, New York gets a big bucket, the governor puts additional money in the bucket, but you have projects out the door lined up applying for that, and only some of them get it. And then you have, 20, 30, 40 projects who applied for funding but didn't get selected that year, and you have to wait until next year or the year after. So it's a limited amount of resources, and it's oversubscribed. On the market rate side, the way that projects get financed is, you go out and you get a loan from a bank, but then you need to find an equity investor to cover the rest of the project costs. And equity investors would like a very sizable return, right? A lot of LP investors in multifamily projects want 20% return on capital, which is, even in New York, obviously this is the case, and in other places where there's housing improvements right now, like Austin and so on. These are the levels of return that are required by investors. And obviously, one, not only is that going to have a hard time working in a city like Kingston, where the market is not particularly strong, it's certainly not going to allow for levels of like 20% at 50% AMI or even 30% at an affordable level. So the issue here is we can't use this gap funding because it's extremely expensive. And we can't use this funding because we commit it all out every year. And so the point of a program like this is, let's make a third channel that is not going to be 100% affordable, because 100% affordable we can only get when the feds dump money in, really. And we're not going to do this because the amount of return required for these projects is far too high. What we want to do is create a revolving fund tool that can come in to cover what would be private equity through the construction period. And what that means is if you don't have this money in here that needs 20% return, if you're making a revolving loan and you just need to make 2% to cover your costs, then you have much more room in your project to actually, the one thing your project needs to do is make enough money to actually pay the loan back, right? Like that's the fundamental constraint. You have to pay the staff in the building, maintain the building, and pay the mortgage. And really the goal here is to get break-even projects where you are making just enough to do those things. And the question is, how much affordability can I get when I'm doing just that? So, okay, we can come back to this slide in a minute, but I'm just going to look through like 2 more slides, I think. I'll actually say it. So this is how these revolving funds, the other kind of value here with these revolving fund tools is that you capitalize a fund once, and that fund can revolve many, many, many times over and over. A lot of times when we create affordable housing funds, we'll put $10 million in a bucket and then we'll allocate it to projects and then it's gone into projects. And that's good. We're paying for good things in those projects. But you have to keep putting money in the bucket every year to keep getting more units. And it's not that we shouldn't do that. We should do that. But we should also have a tool that you set aside and say, this one revolves. And we're going to put this money in this revolving fund, and it's going to go in for construction financing. The project's going to get built, and then it's going to get repaid back into the fund, and the fund can then loan it out to the next project in the exact same way. So the value is you capitalize it once, and you have a tool that can go on many times. And here's just a slide of the number of projects, number of units in the pipeline. So there's close to 1,000 under construction. We'll be over 1,000 under construction in like 1 month. I'm very excited to update this graphic. There are many thousands of units in the pipeline across all of these different jurisdictions. So projects that are under development haven't started construction yet, but we'll get there soon. And hundreds of millions of dollars has been committed to these revolving loan funds in the past couple of years across the country, and that's what's feeding these project pipelines. I think that's it. Oh yeah, and then a couple. I meant to update this one. Atlanta, this project on the left, it is a city-owned parking lot with a 1-story fire station on it. And when the city created their revolving fund and municipal development corporation, they identified this site and said, well, hey, this is in Midtown. This is like one of the highest rent, high opportunity areas in Atlanta. And we just have a parking lot. Why don't we put 30 stories of mixed income housing on it, which you can do without suggesting needs to be a 30-story town, right? But in Atlanta, it makes a lot of sense. And they actually just closed on the bond financing last week, and there is a new rendering. I did not put it in the slides, but they will be starting that one soon. And then this one on the right, this is former Public Housing Authority owned property, housing authority development that was demolished in the 1980s. A long time ago, and the housing authority has never had the resources to do anything with it. And now that they have this tool, they're going to be able to redevelop it into affordable housing.
Questions, reactions, feedback?
And happy to go back to any of the slides on any of the this.
I guess my first question is, where did the money come from
Yeah.
to start up the fund
So so I'll go through these.
in each place?
Yes, I'll go through these. So in Montgomery County, the housing authority issued a bond, and the county government guaranteed the bond for them. So the housing authority was the issuer, the county was the guarantor. And they just operate that fund themselves. They're a little bit unique as an agency. They're very high performing.
Montgomery County has a lot of money. Or.
The county,
I don't know.
yes, the county does. I mean, the county has a.
The AMI is $128,730.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a wealthy.
Right. Yeah. The county has the, $7 billion annual county budget. So they're, it's just outside of DC, and it's a very large county.
I know that county.
Yeah.
I lived there at one point.
Okay, yeah.
So,
But when I said the housing authority is high performing, they have a very large, they have like 10,000 units in their portfolio. They're very big. Yeah. So a lot of them has in Montgomery County. In Atlanta, the city did a $100 million bond issuance for a number of affordable housing related issues, and 38 million of that was dedicated to this revolving fund.
okay.
In Chattanooga, the city had 20 million in American Rescue Plan dollars that they had used for some purpose, and then they had used for some kind of loan, and then it was repaid, and they had those dollars left over and allocated it to this. In Chicago, the city has had a large number of TIF districts, tax increment financing districts. And they retired a number of those districts and bonded against the incoming retired revenue. If that makes sense. So basically,
Finance is not my strong suit.
So basically, they have these districts around the city where increases in property valuations within a certain district, those property taxes go into a separate special fund
Oh, okay,
rather than going into the city general fund.
got it.
And they had it for a long time and it's been accused of being a slush fund and et cetera. And so they retired those districts. So all of the future revenue from those districts will now come back to the general funds.
Mhm.
So it's new revenue and they bonded against that for a number of purposes, one of which was carved off for this.
Okay.
Boston, so there's two things here. One, the state gave Mass Housing, the State Housing Finance Agency, $50 million. Yes, and it was great. And
Very
then,
nice.
and then the city, out of their general fund, added another 50 million to that, to the state's fund, but specifically for projects within Boston city limits.
And that didn't come out of their budget, was that a bond?
No, that was out of the budget.
That was out of their budget.
Well, they
It'd be
budgeted.
nice to have $100 million,
No, yeah.
$50 million to spend.
And there's a few, so in New York, our state legislature gave 50 million to HCR for mixed income housing upstate to do something that's very much in line with this. So there are very much are opportunities to work with that funding. HCR is going to be putting out kind of guidelines, program parameters for how they want to deploy that in the coming months. And so there will very much be opportunities to work with HCR to kind of make the most of that.
So HCR then would provide the capitalization, the initial capitalization for the revolving loan fund?
We have talked with them about that. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean,
Right.
yeah, I think what they want to do is identify projects in different cities across the state and try to leverage that money with additional partners. And so that's, I think, where the value of if Kingston were to do something like this, the ability to match the state's funds would be great.
So, right, they wouldn't necessarily capitalize their fund, but, we could take advantage of their funding potentially. For projects.
And that would be on the equity side or?
That would be on. So a way you can imagine it is, so say you're doing the revolving loan, this piece is 25%, say it's $100 million project, which is probably too big for, I don't know, maybe not. So it's $100 million project. You could say 10 million of that would be city revolving fund and the other 10 million would be HCR revolving fund. So like you could match that.
To make up the 25% or
Yeah,
with?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's, by no means is that the only way to do it, right? I mean, I think that they're still figuring out what they want to do. We talked to them, and I think they're interested in creative ways to make the most use of.
I mean, this be money that would need to be paid back to them, so,
Yeah.
well, if so, in other words, as the money comes in.
Right, so it is revolving, yeah.
Okay.
And, one second. So of all the municipalities that you have listed there, like Montgomery County was already a housing authority.
Yeah,
Um,
these ones are going to do the math version.
or no, actually, no, the ones with the finance, the investment. So, obviously Chicago is not their housing authority, right? That's not.
Yes, the housing authority, yeah, and just the background there is, as maybe you know here, many cities do not have particularly strong relationships with their housing authorities. Some do. Chattanooga and Atlanta are both working with their housing authority. A lot of cities are not working with their housing authority for various reasons.
Okay.
But yes.
So Boston and about Boston, how is that? Is that a?
I think, yeah, I think one of the deals that is gonna happen with the Momentum Fund is gonna be a Boston Housing Authority deal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so those are then, that makes sense because those are already not for profit, so it's a
Yeah,
setup
totally.
system,
Mhm.
model, okay. And then of those, I know Montgomery has tenant protections and what is happening in the others.
They all have the same level of protections that like affordable housing has in those states. So like Chattanooga has just standard, affordable housing protections that are applied to everything in the state, which is not the same level of protection that you would get in, New York City, for example. That's just what they have, Atlanta does have additional protections. I think Montgomery County has additional ones too. I'm trying to think what all of them are.
They have rent stabilization.
They do on the, yeah. All of the, yeah, they have it on the market units and the affordable units, and they do consumer price index plus I don't remember what it is.
It's 3 or 4.
Yeah, it's like CPI plus a number,
Mhm.
couple percent. I think that Chattanooga does not have that. It's Tennessee. Atlanta also does not. Boston Housing Authority does have a CPI measure of some, they stabilize the units.
And then, so when you said New York City's affordable housing protections, which ones are you referring to?
Eviction protection essentially is like the primary one. So like the eviction proceedings in New York have many more layers where there's opportunities for the tenant to cure that and get support and get funds to help them, compared to Tennessee, where that legal infrastructure and support infrastructure does not exist.
Oh, and you go, okay.
So, these are all major cities or counties.
Chattanooga is pretty small.
What's the population? How many?
185,000 people.
180.
I mean, we have 20 provinces.
Yeah, we're 6 times smaller than the
Right.
smallest city who has done this program.
We have.
And so I'm wondering how this gets scaled.
Yes.
I mean, because the costs are very similar. Of course, we wouldn't be doing 30-floor high rise or anything.
So
But to the extent that, we'd have to come up with 25% conceivably in terms of the revolving loan fund, that would be the amount. Because what I'm thinking is that if you give the developer the option of putting in equity from like 5% to 10%,
yeah.
they probably want to opt for the 5%.
Well, it's, yeah, that slide wasn't meant to be like, here's your option. It's meant to be, in most of the projects, roughly what you see is something like that. Right, it's going to be different for every project, depending on all sorts of factors, right? How much do the lands cost? Is it who is the partner? Or do they have additional money that they've raised? Or
Right.
do they not?
So-
Or like in Montgomery County's case, when they come in, they put in the majority equity contribution and they keep the developers down because of that's what they choose to do. Like in this project, The total equity was like 7% of the project. And 4% of that was from Housing Opportunities Commission, 3% from the developer. So Housing Opportunities Commission is the majority.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for instance, Hillendale.
Yep.
They, according to the article that was written about, and this is about 53% of this development will be affordable.
Yes.
So we're sort of.
Yeah,
working out-
So there's two buildings. One of the buildings is a senior building and some of the units are voucher units.
Okay,
So you can stack additional things on top of this, right? So the building on the right
okay,
is just like the building on the left in terms of affordability. The other building is a senior building and some of the units are market, but there's a higher number because they have some vouchers in that building as well.
okay.
Does
But
that
we
make sense?
can no longer look at vouchers necessarily in this environment.
Well, yes, I mean, that is one thing that a lot of communities are, yes, and but what a lot of people are excited about with this is a non-federally funded way to
Right.
produce affordable housing that, the Congress and the president can't stop you from doing this,
Right.
right? Because they're not the ones holding the purse strings. And I was gonna say, we're working with Michigan's State Housing Finance Agency, and there are 4 projects that are on their way to getting done this year. One of them is in a very small community with 4,000 residents, which we're very excited about. Another one is in a town with like 50,000, and another one is in a town with like 100,000. So there are definitely some smaller communities that are making it happen.
When we say making it happen, they pass that. It's
So
a deal or?
The Michigan one, it's at the state level, so the state has funding. And I didn't put Michigan on this table because they're really kind of doing it as a pilot. They didn't get an appropriation for this. They have some general affordable housing funds and they have cordoned off like 27.5 million for a few pilot revolving loans to a few projects that we're doing.
Can you speak on the governance of these organizations?
Yes, so in Chattanooga, Invest Chattanooga is the municipal nonprofit that was created. It has the board is the general counsel of the housing authority and a city hall, the chief housing officer for the city. Somebody from one of the affordable housing nonprofits in Chattanooga. And then there's 2 other people. It's a very small board, and there's 2 other people who are like part of the advisory, which is slightly larger. In Atlanta Urban Development Corporation, the municipal subsidiary, it's a mirror board of Invest Atlanta. Invest Atlanta is the entity that does all of the tax exempt bond issuances. So like, they're the entity that issues bonds for roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, affordable housing, water treatment, like, all of that type of stuff. And their board is a mirror board of this thing. But they do have, they have like city staff who support the board, and they hired an executive director who does a lot of work. In Massachusetts, the State Housing Finance Agency is a behemoth of an organization. It's just a program of the Housing Finance Agency. In Montgomery County, it's the Housing Authority itself, so it's just their board. In Chicago, they just finished doing appointments. They have 9 people. They have affordable housing developers. They have a energy efficiency green standards person. They have a mortgage underwriter type person. They have a affordable housing research tenant advocacy person. They have trying to think. They had like a couple of, they had like 5 like categories of groups that everyone kind of had to be in. But yeah.
And
And for these organizations, what roles do the tenants have in the governance of the?
So in Chicago, there is an advisory board that will be made up of tenants once the entity has, it doesn't have any, they haven't built anything yet, so there's no tenants yet.
So advisory.
Yeah. But you know, to set policy for properties on like a number of things.
And are these governance structures set up when a nonprofit is formed? So every nonprofit that's set up in whatever community would then have a different structure based on.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Every single one is different. Yes.
So it looks like Montgomery County also their housing authority acts as the housing finance agency
Yeah.
as well. I can't find it now, but it looked like they worked with like in partnership with a financial organization or company, a bank, but not.
Yes, there are banks involved in
Yeah.
building it. Yes.
Well, like that helped the day-to-day of their funds, like to.
I mean, yes, they manage most stuff in-house. I mean, they have municipal advisors who are like on their like bench of people that they
Mhm.
consult with on like individual things, but they largely manage things in-house.
But they have a lot of experience managing money.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so I know that this is a new model, basically, so there's not like a period of time that you can go back and reflect on. Have there been any defaults?
No,
Okay, and this model has been around since what, like 3 years?
2019, 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the recourse that the revolving fund would have?
Yes. So the revolving funds typically are not.
What?
Yes. But again, it's like 20% of the capital stack. Right, so
That's a lot of money.
yes, so
It's the money that will induce a developer to
but
go this way, right? So.
yes, I mean,
It's significant.
yeah, you're
Can you explain what that means?
yeah, so a recourse loan is it basically collateralized, right?
I see.
So for like a senior mortgage, like a full construction mortgage, it's typically going to be recourse, right? So the mortgage lender is going to have a legal opportunity to recoup as much of their losses as exists, right? So they may take the land, they may take ownership of the property, the entitlements, the materials, anything that exists. In some structures, you may have you can have other kinds of debt instruments that also have some kind of recourse on them. They're typically doing non-recourse on their revolving loan, but they're also the senior mortgage lender. So they have it through that. And in a scenario where this is happening in New York State, most likely the senior lender is going to be a partner like HCR or a CDFI, like Community Preservation Corporation or something like that, right? So, the expectation of full and total loss is a little bit different, right? And the other thing is, you're only that revolving piece is just like a 3 to 5 year thing. So it's just getting you through construction. So you're not taking you're not taking the long-term risk. You are taking the construction risk, right? But you're getting out
Well,
as
there's,
soon as you're
yeah,
stabilized.
except that there are
Yeah.
a lot of projects that don't make it to stabilization. There's a lot.
Yes,
And so So there
So-
would be no money to revolve if one. of-
If you never, yes,
Yes.
if you don't stabilize. So the other nice thing about this is that you can, because sometimes stabilization just takes longer,
Yes,
right? Sometimes stabilization doesn't happen in 2 years, it happens in 4 years.
Yep.
If you have, if your hole is built by an equity investor, they're going to want their money
Yes.
much more quickly, right? If you have a revolving fund in there instead, you can say, you know what, I initially wrote this on a 3-year term, but I'm gonna
extended.
keep it in for 6 years instead, because I want to get this project to stabilization. And then you revolve in 6 years instead of 3. And, you know,
So what would the typical capitalization have to be for a typical project for the city of Kingston at 25%? Most of our projects come in at, say, 20 to 25 million.
Right, so if a project is, say a project's 25 million.
You put it-
Then you're looking at, and say you're looking at 25% of the stack.
Right.
Then, you know, if you wanted to do 2 projects at a time, then you could probably do that with a $10 or $12 million fund.
Right. So 10 to 12 million dollars would
Yeah.
have to be the initial capitalization in order to fund.
Yeah.
2 projects.
If you felt like you had 4 projects at a time, or you wanted to do slightly larger projects, then maybe 15, right?
Or you can scale down, right, based on the.
Right. Or if you want to do a pilot and you say, look, I just want to try it with one deal, we know the project here, it's otherwise going to be market rate, but I want to turn it into a mixed income instead. I can do that with a $4 or $5 million revolving loan to go through construction. I'll
Right.
try a pilot, right?
So then the question becomes, where do you get that $10 million from?
I mean, that will be the task, right? Once we progress further onto this model, is to look at potential sources. And then, you know, as Paul just described, I mean, the path for these other jurisdictions have been a little bit different. Circumstances on here, and the opportunities that they give.
And like every state's rules on how cities can bond and all of these kinds of things, it's different, but the core of it is if you can, you know, a lot of cities find a way to allocate resources to affordable housing investment. And this is one way that you can do that, where you say, I'm going to take a chunk of my affordable housing resources, I'm going to use this as my revolving tool.
Why wouldn't the county be the better manager of this?
I mean, I'd argue the benefit of us doing it ourselves is that it's a tool for Kingston, right? And for Kingston projects. You know, I think that would be my argument is it's, you know, for Kingston specific projects rather than for countywide projects.
And the county doesn't fund projects in different areas, like individual projects, or only county projects?
I mean, the current model, right, is the county has its housing trust fund, right?
Right.
And that's not a revolving loan program, it's just a grant for projects. And you know, in that case, the limit is based on the project type, it might be $500,000 per project or $700,000 per project. But it's a very different model from what we're discussing.
And would the county be likely to be an investor in something that we're doing here?
There's one thing, so when you revolve once the project stabilizes and you want to revolve your money out, you need to put new capital in its place. And so you need take out financing. There's been a lot of opportunities, you know, in Montgomery County. Their projects are, you know, it's a higher income area that they're able to support, you know, a mezz loan from a bank, right? To take it out. That's not the case in most other places. What other places, like in these 4 projects in Michigan that we're doing, PNC Bank has a Community Reinvestment Act product for they'll do, you know, interest only 10-year mezzanine loan. right? So there's opportunities like that. And in fact, one of those projects, the county has a housing fund and they're going to do the interest only mezzanine takeout loan, right? So there are ways to, collaborate with other, jurisdiction resources to,
Right, yeah, I didn't mean that we certainly wouldn't collaborate with the county, and county could obviously be a partner. And I think one other example I'll give is the land bank, right? An argument could be made, why does the city have its own land bank? Why couldn't it just be a county land bank? I mean, the counter argument there is that we have our own land bank, we have our own land bank, it's very focused on Kingston, right? It's bringing a lot of resources to Kingston that would otherwise be, focused throughout the entire county. If the county wanted to do its own land bank, great, but I mean, I think we've shown that our land bank has been quite successful in doing this work. So I think for me personally, it's the idea of having a tool specific for Kingston.
But then Kingston absorbs the entire risk of default, of market changes, we don't know what's going to happen. And I personally have been involved in projects that didn't stabilize for a very long time. And you have to have the financing, the ability to withstand that. And sometimes you have to take a loss. And so we're trying to decide if this is an appropriate model for the city of Kingston, given our limited resources and the fact that we're talking about taxpayer dollars, actually. Either way, whether it's bonded or not, I mean, eventually it has to be repaid, and it has to be repaid from taxes. And we've just heard that, from TUI, that the outlook,
Comptroller.
the comptroller, that the outlook is, a little unstable at this point. And so I'm just wondering why we would put ourselves in this position at this time to undertake something that in effect, I understand incentivizing the developers and the development of affordable housing, but there's the luxury, not the luxury, I'm sorry, the market rate portion of this is 70%. What we're saying is that for 30% of those units, we're willing to do all these things, to, give you form-based code, give you 421p, give you tax exemptions for 30% of the units. Those other 70%, I understand in this model that there's a way in which we're, subsidizing some of the deeper affordable apartments, but I can't wrap my brain around the risk factor of it and what are we really getting?
so I'll give you an example. Let's go back to this one. This project on the left, Shady Grove, the Laureate. This was proposed as a market rate building, 100% the market rate, 100% luxury. And they had gotten the permits, they had gotten their zoning, they were ready to build, and they were just going to do that. And it was just going to be a market rate building. Then the Housing Opportunities Commission came in and said, hey, I actually want to be a co-investor in this. And and here are my terms. I'm going to provide this financing, so you don't need to go get an equity investor. And I want to get 1 in 3 units affordable.
1 in 3.
30%,
30, okay.
just under 1 in 3. I want those units to be affordable at 50% AOI.
Okay.
And the way they're doing that is making a loan that they then get paid back with interest. So this building went from 100% luxury to 1 in 3 at very low income, 50% AOI.
Okay.
And the housing authority made money on it. That's what so like the value, they made 2% interest on the loan, right? But they didn't it's not money that they're putting in and then it's gone. Right? It's money that they put in and then it revolves back.
Right.
And so the value of it is you can take properties that would otherwise just be 100% market and you can make them a significant share of affordable without having to put any tax credits, any bonds, any vouchers, anything in. And-
So I guess that leads me to the question, can we combine, or would the developer combine 421P with this model?
Yeah, potentially.
I mean,
Potentially, keep in mind, right, it sort of goes back to right now, the school district and the county have not opted into 421P.
Right.
And so in order for 421P to be a viable pathway, that would need to change. But it's potentially, yeah.
and what I would say on the property tax question is like, that's a lever for affordability, right? The more the property tax relief to the property is a lever of how much affordability and how deep the affordability can be in the property. And so that's something that is up to partner. And the other thing I'll say on, the development partner, like the developer who built this building, Bazzuto, they are no longer a housing authority, just owns the building now.
They bought them out.
Yeah. They just, the housing authority owns it. So basically what happened is the developer got paid a fee to build the building.
And what are the development fees?
I think like 5% on that one.
Okay, then that must be an old one. So, but typically, what would the developer fees be?
I mean, a lot of the development fees on these are not 5%.
Are-
Because development fees on affordable deals are much higher, as you know,
Right.
right? 10, 12%. But because the pipeline that cities are doing, that really what a lot of them are doing is finding stalled market rate deals, bringing them in and saying, I'm going to take this deal that would otherwise be market rate,
Mhm.
but it's having trouble. I'm going to put financing on it and make it mixed income. And it's lower cost to build too, right? Like the average per unit development cost of a LIHTC deal in New York is like, what, 500,000 probably?
None, well, how many
Yeah.
bedrooms? Joe?
I think
Well,
that's going to house. That's great.
Yeah. This was 350 a unit. And it's 350 a unit and there's a gym and a spa and a pool. Right, and that's the other benefit to the housing authority is this is like a class, it was designed as a luxury building. And so now they have very low income people who otherwise don't have a lot of opportunities to be in a building with a lot of amenities and services and right next to transit and et cetera. And they're doing it for lower cost per unit than typical programs. And on the stabilization risk, totally hear you on that. The benefit that the way that Housing Abuse Commission Montgomery County talks about it is because when they add in affordability, they're reducing lease-up rates because those affordable units lease up instantly, right? So as like you put that building on the market and a third of the building
Right.
is leased up out.
Right.
That's really powerful.
No,
Yeah.
that part I get. It's the luxury part that I'm wondering where these people are coming from that can afford market rate
Yeah.
at these levels. We don't have those kinds of jobs here.
I hear you on that, but at the same time, I think we know that there's considerable. What we know is that there's considerable housing demand in cities, and it's currently not being met. So I mean, that's the premise of why I started this project in the first place. Was what other tools can the city have to encourage, facilitate housing development?
But it's affordable housing that there's demand.
I mean, I'd argue that there's also a healthy amount for demand for market rate housing as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something we know through realtors who are having clients come in?
I mean, I think it's you know, the last vacancy study, right, under 2% vacancy rate. All the stats about our home prices, our rental prices, right, I think that's reflected in also a shortage of market rate. Yeah, the fact that we haven't built a significant amount of new market rate units since the seventies or eighties is also part of the problem, as you know.
I'm just wondering if maybe, you know, we're reacting to COVID and the northern migration of young professionals here that push it up now, is that going to be sustained with the jobs being?
Sure, it's a fair question. Sure.
I believe that our last HUD, our study that we just put out the 5-year, it talked about needing thousands of units at a lower AMI.
I'm sorry, which study?
The community development report. It's called, we have the 5-year plan.
I'm sorry. I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd argue that there's, you know, yes, we need more affordable housing, and then the only housing that's at scale that we've built in the past 5 years is all affordable housing, right? And it's not enough. I think we also need to have market rate, a significant amount of market.
Just a question about the LIHTC credits, because I understand our current administration has allocated in the budget, they're saying they're going to be giving states a lot more. I'm just curious if you know anything about that.
Yes, so there's a 25% increase in the amount of 9% low-income housing tax credits coming to the state, and then there's a change to the rules for tax exempt bond issuances that will allow more projects to get financed. So yes, HDR is going to be is going to have a little bit more resource to do more projects, but the HCR, like most states in the country, you know, they have enough slots on their conveyor belt to do, you know, 25 deals per year, but they get 100 applications per year. So if you increase them from 25 to 35 deals per year, you still have 65 deals in the backlog waiting to get processed. So it's an increase, but there's still a lot of stuff trying to come in.
Among the new projects that you're working on, are any of them with communities that are on a similar scale to ours?
Yeah. There's a couple in Michigan that are a little bit smaller scale. I didn't put any pictures of them on, but there's one in Michigan in a small town like an hour outside of Detroit that is a former school building that's been vacant for like 30 years, and it's being rehabilitated and turned into, I think, like 50 or 60 apartments.
Okay.
And that's very, it's like, I think it's like 10,000 person. And then there's another one that is like 100 units in a town that's like 75,000 people. So.
And how are they doing the financing for their revolving fund?
So the State Housing Finance Agency
Got it.
has some research. They're basically doing a pilot with 4 projects to test it out and see how it works. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, this is.
Any further questions?
Anybody?
Thank you for coming here and
Yes,
sharing
my pleasure.
sharing all this
Yes,
information.
Yes.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
Really helpful.
Do you have the committee report?
I mean, I think that depends on what this committee might like to do.
So,
Yeah.
Discussion.
yeah.
Really, I thought it was
It
withdrawn.
wasn't technically withdrawn, it's tabled, so
Yes.
I'll leave the decision making in terms of next steps.
Okay.
To this committee, certainly I can, come back future months, once you've had a chance to digest, tonight's information, but I'll leave it up to you.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm not ready
You're not ready to what?
to move on this. I don't think you can bear the upfront capital cost. And I still want the board structure determined before we cast a vote on anything.
Okay, so do we want to leave it on the,
Table?
what?
Do you want to leave a table?
Just leave it on the business, yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the capital as well and the lack of tenant, because the actual Sarah in the city of Kingston not using that needs to be added. For me to feel better about it, so.
Okay, everybody in agreement?
I'm not going to leave it. I've just been.
You're always here. I'm just presuming you are. Okay, everybody on the committee good with that? Everybody good?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Okay. All right. You will leave.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you. My pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, this really helps us think about how to
Great.
structure it.
Well, I'm happy to have more conversations if they're helpful in the future.
Okay, that's our last item.
So, of course, I know
Yeah.
give a quick presentation,
Yes,
for you guys, and given that it's related to the,
thank you, Bartek.
second agency study, we might have to go into executive session. So, I'm not sure if you guys would like to.
Thank you. Thank
Hi.
you both.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
Take care.
What would the motion be, executive session for what?
Because we were discussing, the threatened litigation, or matters related to the threatened litigation for the, next DTBA study.
So is that just a training plan session?
I had it under executive session. Because that's what, public officer law was.
You give me the motion, I will make it.
Their motion, under section 105 of the public officers law for a executive session relating, discussing, threatened litigation for the DTBA.
So moved.
And I will second it.
And I would like our attorney's office to be present.
Thank you.
See you in a bit.
Shut this door.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Bob, do you want us to call you? I see on spot.
I would think so.
I think so.
He's probably making it.
Hello. We're back.
We're back.
Hello.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Here we go.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. Have a good
Good night, Bob.